I never want to be put in a box. I don't want to accept the potentially solid advice that teachers and parents give out that specializing in one thing is a good idea. That might be good advice, but I don't want to accept that because I don't want the only thing that I dedicate my life to and the one thing that I'm good at. I don't want to end up getting tired from that and end up disliking it. I want to be the person that never fell out of love with their passions and maintained their curiosity. And although I might not be the master of each passion that I have, I will at least get to the level where I am good at multiple things. Now, while I'm going to talk about the positives of being a person with multiple interests, I am not blind to the negatives that can come out. So I will talk about them too, as in my first point, it's harder to get bored if you have multiple interests. Now, this can easily contradict itself if you manage your interests incorrectly. And to be real with you, I still struggle with this. If you're working on something and you're struggling with it, it feels like things aren't getting better and you just keep hitting wall after wall and you start procrastinating, you lose focus and you start to reach for your phone, you can easily move on to the next interest. And yeah, on paper, that sounds completely fine. The idea that you can move on and then take a crack at it later, that's pretty cool. But the problem comes is when this happens with all of your interests. So if you're struggling with number one, then you move on to number two, and you're struggling with that, and then you move on to 3 and 4 and 5. Eventually, you're going to have to go back to number one. And you know you were struggling with it, so the thought of that feels daunting to you. So instead, you just don't do anything. And that's how you end up in the room of boredom. But the cure for this is actually simple. It's just hard for humans to do. And that is being comfortable with the idea of delaying gratification. We want immediate results, of course. And we want results because that validates us and gives us a confidence boost, in which then promotes discipline in the activity. The thing is, all this good stuff does happen. It just takes longer to get to that destination. So my advice, and I'm telling this to myself too, is to fully comprehend the idea that, yes, it is hard, but by avoiding my passion, my fire will slowly burn out and it will be harder to ignite again. So know 100% that even if it feels like your work is not amounting to anything, that is not true. You're adding fuel to the fire and yeah, it might be a little drop of fuel, but inevitably you will get to the point where instead of giving drops of fuel to the fire, you will throw a whole jug on that fire. And then you will see the fruits of your labor and that will create a snowball effect. It's exactly like when you're exercising and you see your body changing and muscle coming through and you get excited about it and you're like, oh, if I just carry on with this, my body could look like this. And it's that glee and enjoyment towards progression that makes you a stronger person. And so when obstacles come your way the next time, it will be a little bit easier to overcome them. The next point is curiosity is good, actually. I mentioned something similar to this in my It's Hard to Make Friends in Your 20s video. We need to reinvigorate our curiosity that we had as children into ourselves as adults. Think of how easy it was to be interested in stuff as a kid. You liked colouring books even though you were terrible at them. You could watch any movie or TV show. You had many different phases. Perhaps you were interested in dinosaurs, then that moved on to cartoons and then eventually superheroes. My point is as adults, we are kind of less open to new stuff. We stick to what we know, and that's for a good reason. Because if bad things happen, you've wasted precious time and it's hard to fall back on that. Time is precious. As a kid, you had all the time in the world and you could always fall back on your parents. My problem is instead of being rational and maybe having some explorative nature within you, because it's not conceivable to have the same amount as you did when you were a child. It's just not possible as adults. Instead, we just cut it off completely and we become closed-minded and stick to what we know. And the thing is, this is harder to do the older you get. Because as you get older, the likelihood of you becoming more conservative and orthodox significantly increases. It's better to quit your smoking addiction now than when you're an elderly person. Now for me, I've never struggled with this, thankfully. Ever since I was a kid, I was always in my creative element more often than other kids. So growing up and transitioning into an adult, this was never lost in me. I've always had a desire for self-expression. When I was around 11 years old, I liked dancing and being a YouTuber. Then ages 12 to 15, I was really into acting and wanted to become an actor. I will admit I still have an itch for that. Then the most significant was, and still is, music. Can you tell? And now at my age of 22, I've managed to make YouTube, which has still remained an interest over the years, and my self-expression through something like this or art. But although they are my main interests and focus, they are not the only ones, as I have a second channel that is basically my nerd den, and yes, I am a huge nerd. I love stories and characters and psychology, and I explore that with my second channel. Also this year I've been coming up with a story idea. I've got thousands of ideas dancing around in my head. I should probably write them down. So being a potential author is also within my interest. And it all returns down to my core of self-expression, right? Because with these characters and stories, I want to say something. I want to convey something to the audience. They are not empty. I encourage you to maintain your curiosity, because you could learn something about yourself and, if you're lucky, find your purpose in this life. Curiosity killed the cat, but we're not cats. What the hell was that? That sounded like some pseudo-intellectual quote that it sounds cool and everything, but it actually means nothing. Okay. And another thing why I want to do everything is I want to be known for being me, free of labels. I would hate to end up in a position where I'm just known for one thing. And this can be easier to implement before you start your endeavors. Because I've seen many people, whether it be social media personalities or otherwise, when they are known for one thing, people only want that one thing from them and they get popular off that one thing. So when these popular people try something different, it's very rare for that audience to transition towards that new thing that that person is exploring. That's why you have to visualize your goal clearly before you start. I remember a TikTok of mine got like, I think 500k views. I was exploring Brazilian music as I have a Brazilian girlfriend and I wanted to explore more of her culture. So I thought it was a cool idea for a European guy to listen to some Brazilian music, so I made a little video and uploaded it to TikTok. Unfortunately, people only followed me for that type of content and I didn't want that, so I'm pretty sure I stopped and privated all the videos. Which is why with this channel, I'm trying to base it more around me, my personality. And so it's my personality and what I have to say, my self-expression, that's why people come. And in hopes of inspiring people or giving something of value to someone. You know, you see people like KSI who breaks boundaries of what it means to be a YouTuber. And whether you like him or not, that is good for people to realize that the sky is the limit with this. You have all the power. You don't need anything else. You just have to take care with your direction. But having said all this, I think the biggest problem I struggle with is the fact that I feel like potentially this feeling of wanting to do everything is a product of not fully understanding my identity. Perhaps it goes a bit deeper than just having a curiosity in many different things. Maybe I throw myself into these things in hope of a revelation occurring where it finally clicks and I figure out who I am. It's like an adventure. I'm out at sea in my little boat, but I don't have an anchor to keep me steady. So instead, the waves take me somewhere. Maybe somewhere beautiful, maybe somewhere dangerous. And that absence of security is frightening to us. It's unpredictable. But it is possible that the negatives are just easy to identify and often overwhelming that we neglect the possible positives of the situation. And so I'm in the middle of the open sea, no anchor, no security. It's scary, but I see the beautiful sunset better than anyone can in the city. When I look up at the stars, they look closer and shine brightly. I see a diverse catalogue of fish, some I've never seen before. Inevitably, this journey will end one way or the other. But if I decided not to take the risk of going on this adventure, then I would have lost a lot of what this world has to offer. All the beauty I never got to witness. Maybe it is stupid to try and juggle a bunch of different passions and interests. But let me be the one to face the possible consequence of that. Let me be the one to fail so I can rise above it. For what is life without a little bit of risk? Thank you for spending time with me.